This is the issue I have with fasting. Really long fasts, up to 24, 48 hours, are a little bit extreme. Short fasts, overnight fasts, absolutely great. Give your body a chance to burn fat and to rejuvenate overnight. But really long fasts can actually just stress our bodies out loads more and really imbalance our hormones and cause the opposite of what you're actually aiming for.
Have you found yourself wondering whether the new anti-spike supplement or the new M&S gut shot might be helpful additions to your regime? Do you see influencers or experts online and follow everything that they say, assuming that they must be right because they've got the qualifications and they've got the following, so they must know exactly what they are talking about? Well, me and my team decided to get together this week and have a bit of a conversation about what's going on in the industry at the moment and some of the new trendy diets and products that are cropping up that may well be catching your attention. We wanted to discuss these things because it comes from a place of concern for people who perhaps vulnerable because they're in pain, because they have a problem that they so desperately want to fix, and we find ourselves trying all these different things and spending a lot of money on a lot of different things but that perhaps aren't right for us. We have a responsibility to our audience, to you, to share our professional opinions and learnings so that you can make informed decisions about these products. And as you'll see from the podcast, we're not saying that these products are inherently bad or that these people are bad. If anything, we are appreciative of the knowledge that they bring to the field. But we have to be a little bit careful about listening to absolutely everything. And that's the conversation that we're having today. So hopefully you'll feel much more informed after this one. Welcome to the Thriving Metabolism. It's my mission to empower you so that you and your metabolism thrives and you never have to go through diet misery again. I'm Louise Digby, registered nutritional therapist, weight loss expert, and founder of the Nourish Method to lasting fat loss. Now, within the Nourish Method, we have a couple of nutritional therapists who support our clients, and they are on the podcast for me today. We've got Lara Seago and Christelle Page. They are both registered nutritional therapists and experts in women's health and weight loss. So let's dive in. Okay. I think when this all first came up for us, it was a normal day. And then we woke up in the morning and we saw on social media that this anti-spike formula had been released. And I think it was Christelle who jumped into our Slack channel and said, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" And I was like, "Yes, I've seen it." And yeah, we decided that we would just hop on a call and record our conversation so that we could express our professional opinions and feelings about this and other things so that we can inform our listeners and help them to make informed decisions. So, Christelle, as it was you that kind of started the conversation, perhaps you could start by sharing why it was that this caught your attention and kind of what your initial thoughts and concerns were about it.
I think that as nutritional therapists, we are quite familiar with the glucose goddess, and we tend to sometimes just like even recommend some of what she's been advising to some of our clients, which is quite helpful. But she's launched this product, which is called the anti-spike, which actually just like there's a few issues around just the name in itself, because having a spike in blood sugar insulin after eating food is completely normal. What we want just to do is just mitigate how high or how low those spikes are. But I think that this supplement or just the issue around these supplements was mainly around the marketing and the way it just was marketed. I think that she put a few graphs on the face. No, there was not Facebook, it was Instagram. But anyway, same thing. That what is the spike if you eat the blood sugar and the insulin spike if you eat like a piece of cake without the supplement, and if you have two of the pills and then the cake, which actually just like portray the message that instead of, well, there's always just like a place and a time for eating, a bit of cake and things like that. But I think that the issue was just like, it was almost like a free pass to, if you take those two pills, you can eat as much cake as you want, which, yeah, I think that the issue was mainly around marketing, actually, rather than anything else. And I know that we all after quick fixes and quick results and things like that. So then there were some celebrities jumping on it saying, well on and things like that. And there was also some diabetic, a bit more worryingly, actually, diabetic that are probably on medication, either type 1 diabetic or type 2 diabetic, that just saw that actually by taking this supplement, that would be the answer to all their praise. They would be able to eat just like all the cakes or ice cream or whatever in the world that they wanted. So, yeah, the issue was much more around marketing, I think. And there's not one supplement that is ever going to work in isolation. I think the lifestyle and the core diet is the first port of call for anything. It's just supplement is great, but there's also other issues around the supplement and who funded the research as well, which is a really well-known food company. So I think that to some extent, you can make the science say whatever you want it to say if you have like the funding from this big company. So I think that was just my main, I think, bugbear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had any clients asking you about this, either of you?
Not so far, actually, although I did bring it up in our group client check-in call last week. So we had a bit of a chat about it then, but no, not so much, thankfully. But yeah, I agree with Christelle. It's mainly the marketing. If it's part of a protocol that's tailored to the client and they're doing all the right things in terms of the right diet for blood sugar balance, then, sometimes adding a supplement into the mix might enhance the benefits for sure. There's a couple of helpful ingredients in it, but certainly not in isolation. And it doesn't, as Christelle says, it's not free pass to eat what you want and it'll all be okay if you take this. So that was kind of that. I had the same view, really.
What do you think about the actual ingredients of the supplement? Do you think it's a good combination of things, or would you have put different things in a supplement?
I probably would have put different things in it. There's one or two things in it that are helpful, but yeah, there's things that I would have liked to have seen in there as well. But even a great supplement isn't going to be a miracle by itself, is it? Without the basics, as Christelle said, without getting the right kind of diet and making sure that the blood sugars are managed through diet and lifestyle in the first place. And then the supplement might enhance things, but certainly it's not going to be a miracle working pill on its own.
And then that's the same for most supplements. It needs to be something that is added on top of some really solid foundations, and it's fine to deviate away from those healthy food choices occasionally and use a supplement like that to help minimize the impact of not so nutritious food choices. But we need to make sure that the supplement isn't being used in place of a healthy diet, or any supplement is being used like that, because it's all well and good keeping your blood sugars in a normal healthy range, but if you're eating food that is nutrient poor, ultra processed, inflammatory, then you're going to be still experiencing damage to your system and depletion of nutrients and a general degeneration of your health overall. And the supplement isn't going to mitigate that.
No. My concern always with these things as well is there is no one supplement that's suitable for everybody. And the marketing around these things is always, everybody take these. But actually, you need to be really careful with supplements because they are powerful, and you need to make sure it's suitable for each individual client. Make sure there's no drug nutrient interactions if they're on medication. It might be contraindicated with certain health conditions. So there's also that concerns me about these kind of blanket marketing campaigns, because it might be helpful for some people, but maybe not. Maybe really not helpful at all for others. That's always the danger in these kind of blanket approaches as well, I think, particularly when it comes to supplements. Also with diet as well, I have the same bugbear with everybody do this or everybody do that, because again, it's what works for one isn't necessarily right for another. It might be completely inappropriate for one client, but it might be great for another. That's where our kind of tailored individualistic approach to nutritional therapy comes in. So yeah, that's my other bugbear when it comes to these kind of big celebrities and the sort of fads. The glucose goddess, actually, she's done some really helpful stuff. As Christelle said, she's raised the profile of the importance of balancing your blood sugars and some helpful tips, which I think is great. But it was just the supplement and the marketing strategy. I think if it was maybe marketed in a slightly different way, it wouldn't be such an issue.
I think this kind of raises a point of being careful about the people who look like they are in an authority position, because you get these people, particularly on Instagram, who are influencers, and they may be very well qualified influencers. You know, the glucose goddess is a biochemist, I think. They may be very well qualified, but that doesn't mean that everything that they do and say should be followed and taken as gospel. I mean, I agree that she has a lot of really helpful things, a lot of really helpful tips. Many of our clients have started with her stuff before us and then moved on to us when they've needed something more personalized. But one example is I've seen her post about artificial sweeteners, and with the kind of underlying message that they're okay because they don't raise your blood sugars. And I think there was posts about things like Diet Coke and saying how that is so much better than your full fat Coke because it doesn't raise your blood sugars. But it's difficult to say which is better, but my general feeling is that the kind of full fat Coke is better because it doesn't have artificial sweeteners in, because of the damage that artificial sweeteners do to your gut health and the way that they drive appetite.
So massively increases the risk of brain tumors and, you know, neurodegenerative illnesses as well. So, and there's quite a bit of research around that. But,
yeah,
you know, I'd probably agree with you, actually.
The problem as well with those people that well qualified in their field, biochemists and things like that, is that they don't necessarily just have the clinical practice that we see as well with our clients. Yes, it looks good on paper, but how does that translate in clinical practice with our clients? There's other people or influencers doing the same, or the people that are qualified in different fields, like just thinking about a specific epidemiologist or a chiropractor and things like that. They're qualified in their field. They will give some advice to some extent that may or may not be helpful, but they don't have a clinical practice for nutrition, especially.
And that's important because we don't live in a vacuum, do we? We have stuff going on outside of just making food choices, and we have an influence of our underlying mindset, and we've got family stuff going on and busy lives and jobs and travel. And so it's about looking at all of that, as well as the individual's medical history and needs and medications and symptoms and everything, and trying to bring that all together to make a plan that makes sense for the individual. And there is certainly many different approaches out there that are quite blanket approaches that just won't suit most people. And I think this is one of the problems when you have someone that is very almost like single track minded with their approach. Like the glucose goddess is all about balancing blood sugars, and then you get people who are all about doing keto, people who are all about doing fasting, and that's all they do. But actually there's loads of people that keto isn't suitable for, fasting isn't suitable for, and all the other diets may not be suitable for various individual people because of what's going on for them, either medically or nutritionally or lifestyle wise or relationship with food wise. hormone wise, life stage wise. So that's one of the issues, is when you follow someone online who is solely focused on, for example, getting your blood sugars balanced, which, we talk about blood sugars, but we certainly feel that getting your blood sugars balanced is the first step to optimizing your health. But we have to go further than that to really see true transformation in health and well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much to it, isn't there?
Definitely. Now, I know, Lara, there's someone that really is a bugbear for you online.
Women deep health and the fast. And this is the issue I have with fasting. And I have the amount of friends who've said to me, oh, you should read her book. And I have read the book because I wouldn't comment unless I had. And I thought, oh, perhaps there's lots of science in this. I'd like to understand the science and where she's coming from, because she's talking about intermittent fasting and how it can really help, particularly in perimenopause, where there's hormone imbalances for women. And she encourages regular, really long fasts, up to 24, 48 hours for everybody. And again, I have a real problem with that. And the amount of friends who've said to me, oh, I'm following Mindy Peltz. And I just think, oh, but actually, I read the book. And again, for some people, maybe there's bits of it that might be helpful. I do think the long fasts are a little bit extreme. And I get the viewpoint is kind of, our ancestors would have fasted for long periods of time. Yeah, absolutely. But they didn't have the kind of stresses that we're exposed to in the modern world. The only stress they had was the occasional running from a tiger, which big stress, but it was a short burst of stress. In the modern world, we're under so much stress, and actually fasting for long periods, yeah, short fast, overnight fast, absolutely great. Give your body a chance to burn fat and to rejuvenate overnight. But really long fasts can actually just stress our bodies out loads more and really imbalance our hormones and cause the opposite of what you're actually aiming for. And I couldn't find a lot of I'd love to know what the scientific justification is for these recommendations, but I couldn't really find much of that actually when I read the book, because I thought maybe I'm missing something and maybe I need to understand this in more depth, but it was very lacking.
Yeah.
In science. But again, she's everywhere and very renowned. Dr. Chatterjee's doing podcasts with her, and everybody is following this method. Lots of people, not everybody, but it's very popular. And again, it's that blanket approach that it just isn't right for everybody, and actually can be quite detrimental for some people, depending on what's going on for them hormonally, particularly, or if they've got slow thyroids or those kind of situations, or if they're very stressed. So yeah, that always concerns me. Again, it's this, everybody should follow this approach rather than looking at each individual and what's right for them.
Absolutely. I know that when I've looked at the science on fasting, what you find is that pretty much all of the research is on men and not on women, particularly not women who are perimenopausal, menopausal. And the research that I have found that has been done on women has shown that, yes, fasting, not to the extent that Mindy Peltz recommends, 8-hour fasts, sorry, 16-hour fasts in that sort of region, have been shown to help with cholesterol and reducing blood pressure and those sorts of metabolic markers.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
But it doesn't help them lose weight.
No.
And why? Probably because it stresses their body, because it imbalances their hormones more, which, as we know, is something that can really actually hamper the weight loss process.
I try all these things out because I like to know for myself experience, and so that I know whether it's a good thing, that it might be helpful for clients or not. I read the book and I tried it for a couple of months just to see, because I'm perimenopausal and struggle with all these things myself. And it made me put weight on, actually. It didn't help me lose it at all. And I felt thoroughly miserable, I've got to say, because how can you get enough nutrients if you're fasting for long periods of time all the time? It's really hard to get to nourish your body sufficiently if you're only having 1 or 2 meals a day. Again, there's a time and a place for it, and agree it can be helpful sometimes. And so I do recommend it sometimes for the right people in the right circumstances, but just certainly not for everyone. And probably for the majority of perimenopausal women, probably don't. It's very few that I would suggest it to.
Yeah, when we do recommend it to clients is when they've got a really solid foundation in place, and we've been working with them for months beforehand to make sure that they're really well nourished, that their blood sugars are balanced, that their thyroids are well supported, and
stressed.
Yeah, exactly. We would never bring in fasting unless we've got all of that in place. And even then, we'd still be cautious about it and we'd monitor quite closely to ensure that it's actually working for them. I think the thing that can be confusing sometimes is that when you start something like fasting or any diet, really, you can often feel good at first because the stress response doesn't always kick in initially. So it can feel like maybe something else isn't working or maybe something else has gone wrong, but actually it's probably the fasting that is causing that stress on your body and making everything go out of balance. And, that's going to impact your sleep and it's going to make you more prone to stress and loads of other not so beneficial stuff.
I'm quite worried when I see women just like in clinic and they said, "Oh, I've tried everything to lose weight." They're already really stressed. But then you just look into their blood test results and they've done like 72 hours fast and they have a thyroid issue. It's, oh my goodness, it's just no wonder that you feel absolutely rubbish and you can't lose weight because that's not going to work for you. It's completely the opposite of probably what they should do. So there's probably a time for time restricted eating, just like a 12 to 14-hour window overnight fast. But beyond that, yeah, I'm starting to question, just especially with the kind of people that we have in clinic, highly stressed, mostly just like perimenopausal women with thyroid issues. It's not a good idea to have really extreme fast like that.
Yeah, because if you've got a thyroid problem or if you are under stress, then you need fuel. Your thyroid really needs fuel, your brain needs fuel. And when you are fasting or you're in a significant calorie deficit, you're not getting the fuel you need. So your thyroid is going to slow down, your body is going to become even more stressed, and that is going to block your progress because it's going to disrupt your sex hormones and cause inflammation and all other things in the body. So, yeah, that is a big problem that we see. And so often we're telling our clients to eat more, aren't we?
Yeah, which is often what they need at that phase in their lives. Then this is it, isn't it? If you're doing like a 24-hour fast and you're having one meal a day, how on earth do you get all the nutrients you need into that one meal? That's one hell of a meal, isn't it?
That's a feast.
So that constant supply of nutrients throughout the day that can be really helpful for perimenopausal women in particular, that, and just getting them all in one hit is not necessarily the best approach.
Now, in our previous conversation, what's it called? Tim Spector's gut shot, is it called?
Yes, the gut shot. I think that's something that Tim Spector and the Zoe program launched in MNS, which is basically fermented milk, so kefir with a bit of added, I don't even know what are the ingredients, but they're like quite expensive for what they are, full of sugar probably as well. So just probably not the best thing. But again, you have to remember that they have a quite heavy marketing and they have things just to sell. So I think that a little gut shot is about £2, I think, but nothing that you couldn't do with a good quality plain kefir mixed with some berries, just whisk together. So, yes.
The reality is there's so much that you can do to support your gut bacteria where you don't have to spend £2 per day or however often it is on a product like that. Things like making sure you've got a wide variety of vegetables and fruit in your diet, nuts and seeds, and making sure that you've got some fermented foods in your diet, which could be kefir or kimchi or sauerkraut. And that's going to go a hell of a lot further than a gut shot would.
You
I
can make
believe.
your own, which I make my own kefir at the moment, and it costs pennies each week for a great big bottle of it every few days. You don't need to spend £2 on a little tiny thing. That's expensive, isn't it? Especially if you're having one every day. It really adds up.
Yeah, it reminds me of Yakult and Actimel, which, were quite heavily promoted probably about 10 years or so ago.
Yeah.
And when you look at what they are, they were high in sugar, they were quite processed, and they had actually not that much probiotics in them. You probably had more in your cheap plain yogurt that you buy from the supermarket. So it was just all marketing, again, around gut health. And to me, that's a very similar sort of thing as this gut shot.
over the years, I've had a lot of clients have my Yakult in the morning and I kind of start to wither inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, there lots of sugar, not much probiotic, like you say, and not really that helpful. And quite, I mean, I've never bought them, but they're probably not cheap either, are they?
Yeah, they were always quite expensive. And then the supermarkets did their own version. I don't know if they still do. They don't tend to come up on clients' food diaries
Not so
anymore.
much now, no.
Thankfully. But it also reminds me of things like the apple cider vinegar gummies that get promoted. You see those on Instagram a lot. And half the benefit of having apple cider vinegar before a meal is that bitter taste that it gives you because it stimulates your digestive enzymes. So taking the gummy to avoid that bitter taste is missing the point, really, isn't it? Yes, there's ingredients in apple cider vinegar as well that are beneficial for supporting your blood sugars. There's so many more benefits to apple cider vinegar than just those couple of ingredients that support the blood sugars that you're missing out on so much by going for the gummies and getting probably quite a lot of sugar and other processed ingredients along with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there anything else that you feel like is worth a mention, or do you think we've covered the current stuff?
I think Zoe is the other big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, because I have actually looked at some of the test results because we've had clients come to us who've already done the Zoe program, and I've looked at the test results and they're very basic. They're not that comprehensive. It's not that personalized yet. Again, it's marketed as being personalized nutrition. And yes, it's quite helpful wearing a continuous blood glucose monitor and learning how different foods affect your body. It's not that personalized, and it might not give you all the answers that you're hoping for that a more sort of comprehensive personalized approach would.
From what I understand, you get quite a big report, but actually there's only a small like paragraph or so of it at the end, which is actually personalized to you and what's come up in your tests. And I know we've had a couple of clients who have done Zoe and been told that there's not really much for them to worry about gut wise. And then when we've done our tests on the gut, we've found that actually there are imbalances going on and there is work that needs to be done on their gut to optimize it.
They only check a few really basic markers, and it's nowhere near as comprehensive as the kind of stool tests or tests that we do. Yeah, it's going to miss a lot of things that a more comprehensive test would analyze. And even the bloods are quite basic, sort of thyroid tests and things like that. It's a bit helpful, but it's not as personalized and detailed as the marketing leads you to believe.
And also from what I've heard, you're kind of left to it. It's all app-based and the support side of things isn't great if you get stuck or you need some guidance on how to adapt things to your individual needs. I did a podcast a few weeks ago with one of our clients from quite a while ago who had been through Zoe before she came to us, and she expressed a lot of these same experiences as well. On a similar sort of theme, continuous glucose monitors are becoming quite popular. I'm seeing loads of people who I know are definitely not diabetic wearing them, which is fine. I think they're a helpful tool to get to know your body better. But I think one of the misconceptions is that you should have completely flat blood sugars. And if your blood sugars go high or if they go a bit low, then you're eating something wrong or you're doing something wrong. But that's not the case, right? It's normal to have an elevation in your blood sugar or a little bit of a dip in your blood sugars after eating. And it's more about preventing those real highs and real lows. Yeah, absolutely. So we want to see a little bit of a wave, a little bit of a pattern, but we don't want to see big spikes and big dips because that's when you're triggering extra insulin to be released. And that's when you're going to be experiencing dips in your energy, disruption to your hormones, more cravings, and difficulty in controlling food choices as well.
And also, it's great having that information, isn't it? But actually, then what do you do? And how do you need to change your diet to change that if you are getting extreme highs and lows? And where's the support for that? And who's going to advise you on that? It's then about understanding what needs to be done with that information to get the best outcome for the client.
Yeah, and that's the thing with all these advances in public facing tests and technology is it's interpreting that information so that you can actually put into place some changes that make sense for you. And there's a little bit of a disconnect at the moment because you can have loads of information, and for people, it's easier and easier to get more access to more and more information. But then it can almost leave you feeling overwhelmed and even more stuck because you're like, oh my God, I've got blood sugar issues and I've got gut issues and I'm inflamed and all these other things. How do I address all of those issues together rather than just working on one thing at a time, which is where a personalized approach is needed, because we need to work on all these things and get those foundations in place to address these imbalances properly.
We get that, don't we, quite often. I've just taken one of our new clients has just come and had every test under the sun done and then ended up with us because it's overwhelm and doesn't know where to start or what to do, and feels they keep trying a bit of this and a bit of that and nothing's working and getting the results they want. So that's where that sort of, like you say, that personalized approach and understanding the information and what to do about it really comes in.
Even we get overwhelmed sometimes when we've got someone coming in and they've done a Dutch test and a GI map and they've done blood tests, and then we want to run our own tests because we haven't got the full picture. Sometimes people come in with genetic testing as well. And when you're trying to piece that all together, it's a hell of a lot to process, as well as factoring in their medical history and symptoms and all of those things as well. So it is no wonder that people get confused with growing access to these quite sophisticated tests. So yeah, definitely helpful to have someone guide you through that so that you can get the most out of those tests, because otherwise it's just a waste of money, isn't it? There's no point doing it if you don't know what to do with the information.
Exactly. And they're quite an investment, aren't they? So, if you're going to do them, you want to get the best out of it for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode and you're feeling more informed about these people and products that are appearing on our social media. If you'd like to talk to us about anything that we've discussed in this episode, you can reach me on socials by searching at Louise Digby Nutrition, and you can find out more about what we do on my website, louisedigbynutrition.com. If you enjoy this podcast, then please make sure you hit follow. And if you've been loving it, then please do take just 30 seconds to leave a little review on iTunes and tell me what it is you love about the podcast. I'd really love to hear it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.